Scanning for audio.
Radio from Garrow.
Welcome to another Whoverville 8 panel. This time with Graham Cole, Gillian Brown and Peter Roy, interviewed by Luke Harrison of the Minute Doctor Who podcast, with interjections from the audience.
It's me again. Hello. Yes. Panel number 3. We have, if I can get this right, we have Graham Cole.
Oh, yes.
Gillian, and I've forgotten your surname. Brown. There we go. I should have the plan in mind. And Peter Roy. Yeah. Now, let me get this right. So, Graham, you played the body of the Melker and then various Cybermen in Doctor Who.
Various Cybermen.
Well,
the Cybermen.
The Cybermen, yeah, okay. And other roles over the...
Marshmen, Melker, just keep them rolling. I was encased in rubber far too many times for the BBC.
Were you a Kinder as well?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Yes. And then Gillian Brown was a Hika in The Brain of Morbius.
That's right.
And then Peter, I believe you've been in many stories over the years as a variety of...
18 episodes.
18 episodes.
Yeah.
Ranging from the William Hartnell era all the way through to...
Don't say that.
You're a boy.
Through to...
Yes, I'm a youngster.
Child actor.
Yes. Through to Peter Davison, I believe.
Pardon?
You spanned from William Hartnell through to Peter Davison,
yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is
I was just lucky. I mean, anybody else could have done it. I was just a lucky one.
Not as well.
Not as well.
Oh, I don't know.
So, well,
I don't know. They're such lovely people. I love being with them.
Let's start with you then, Peter. So, how did you become an actor, and how did you get involved with Doctor Who?
Well, I started acting at 7. I did Bugsy Malone and Oliver and silly scenes like that, Treasure Island. And I never wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't have the patience. It's terrible, isn't it? But my parents were actors, and I just had to carry on, you know. I had private tutoring and did a lot of travelling around the theatres. And it just went from there. I just kind of pushed into it. And then I used to get, mind you, I lost a lot of the jobs that I got. I failed a lot of auditions. But, you know, the thing is, when you're doing these jobs, once the film is finished, you're out of work. And you're waiting for your agent to say, how would you go for another audition? But I couldn't do anything else. I mean, I've never done an honest day's work in my life. I just enjoy doing it and meet such lovely people, and you get to travel the world too. I mean, I've been all over the world. I've been to Canada, I've been to America, I've been to Malta. I'm going back now to Austria, and it's great because the people over on the continent or even in America are so good to you because they give you the impression that they're happy that you actually came to see them, and you get such wonderful audiences. I mean, I've just been to Stuttgart. And in 2 days we had 10,000 people in 2 days in Stuttgart in Germany. But I'm just lucky, that's all, just fortunate.
Yeah, so how did you first become cast in Doctor Who then?
Because I had a police uniform. Yeah, I had my own police uniform. Of course, the only way you could get work in television in those days, you had to have your own uniform. So I've got a police uniform, and every time I wanted a policeman, there I am. So you'll notice all my pictures of policemen.
Fantastic.
And they always wanted, in Doctor Who, there's always a policeman, and I was the policeman in Doctor Who.
You were the policeman. Fantastic. Gillian,
Yes.
you turn up in the Tom Baker era, in I think what is regarded as one of his better stories. How did you get involved with the Brain of Morbius?
I was doing quite a bit of television at that time, and it was the wonderful late Chris Barry, and I auditioned once. There were a lot of people up for the part, and then I was auditioned again, and then I got it. I was delighted to be working with Cindy Grenville, and it was one of those. It was a usual 4-episode story, and it was terrific. We had the RSC's choreographer, Geraldine Stevenson, who designed this dance. We had to do like a kind of dervish dance because we tied Tom Baker to the stake, didn't we? And he wasn't all that happy about it, but we were going to sort of set fire to him, and so that was quite funny because we rehearsed it sort of with rulers, just holding a ruler aloft. But then come the day, we had each had sort of about half a candelabra each, and you went did that, and gas came out of it, and a guy came along and lit it, and it went, But then Tom really was a bit concerned, but there were people all round us, just out of shot, obviously, with fire extinguishers and everything, and we had a terrific dance. But it was. I was saying earlier, you couldn't do it now. Health, you really couldn't do it now.
Right.
But you can see from what I've said, we had some great people in. The great Philip Maddock was in it.
Oh.
What a man! What a wonderful man.
Yes.
And it was considered a scary episode, and I think I'm right in saying it was banned in a couple of countries, including New Zealand, which of course just upped its status.
Yes.
Really, just
Gives
because
it
it
more
was
publicity,
banned.
doesn't it? Gives it more publicity.
It gives it more publicity. It was quite funny, really. Yes, and but it was good, and the extras, and as I said a few minutes ago, I don't even like using that word. The supernumeraries. No, I won't even call them that. I'll call them what they were. The Sisterhood of Khan were fantastic. They were dancers, really. I sing. I write music as well as act. But I'm not a dancer, and these girls were employed primarily because they were wonderful dancers. And they were lovely. They were so helpful to me. Whenever we had a few minutes, we'd go through this dance, and it was a great job to do, really. It was lovely to work with Tom. And it achieved, for no great reason really, perhaps just the parts of the story, I don't know, but it achieved a sort of cult status. And then it just kind of grew from there. So it was very often, like when the NFT did 1 or 2 stories from each Doctor's tenure, they chose The Brain of Morbius from Tom. It was shown at the NFT, and it was lovely to do it, really.
So it's a story that's followed you since you did it. Did you have any expectation at the time that you would still be talking about it all this time later?
Well, I'm one of these people who I have such love for Doctor Who fans, for the fan base. It's rather like the theatre. I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of theatre. You wouldn't think so if you went online. I've got to get a website. I've done a hell of a lot, and it's not because I've been writing for over 10 years. Adaptation of an Iris Murdoch novel, which I was commissioned to do. But it's rather like the theatre, where people remember you in a play, and the Doctor Who fan base, I mean, because it's not the theatre, it's television, but the passion of the fans is extraordinary. And so, even though I just did one story, I'm aware, and I'm grateful and humbled by the fact that I'm part of a family, and I'm honoured to be part of that family, and I adore the fans. I got a lot of letters recently. You'll guess why. And I'm just, I'm I'm delighted and honoured to be part of this family. It's a phenomenon. It's unique.
Yeah.
There's no other
Yes.
show that
Yes.
has this story attached to it.
It's true.
And it is the reciprocity, you know, the ebb and flow of storytelling and fans. It's. I think it's wonderful.
I agree.
Yeah. Graham, tell us a little bit about your journey into acting and then into Doctor Who.
Well, I think like Peter, I was 8, and no one in this room is probably old enough to remember Saturday morning cinema that you could go to for sixpence, watch a B movie, which would be my favourite, which would be the old war movies, with Jack Hawkins in the team, and then the number one. And my heroes, of course, were John Wayne, Humphrey Bogart, and those guys. And I grew up, and then I knew that's what I wanted to do. My dad, because I was in every school play, groups, I played drums and a couple of other instruments, so loads of bands and things. And my dad insisted I did something sensible.
Yeah.
So at 16, when you had to make up your mind what you're going to do, most people thought I'd probably go and study drama. I was only any good at 2 things at school, which was English and sport. The rest of it just left me quite cold. Again, I think many actors are exactly in that mould. Mm-hmm. But because I played cricket and tennis, both for the school and the county, you got a fantastic report at the end of the year if you were useless at everything else, which was jolly useful for me. But the only other thing I'd done really was with Mum and Dad, who ended their career as brother and sister of St John. So I joined St John Ambulance when I was 9. So when I was 16, I had to make the decision. Most people thought I'd go to university and study English and probably teach English. Where in actual fact, I went to the health service and came out in orthopaedics 4 and a bit years later.
Wow.
Came home, said to Dad, I've done what you wanted me to do, can I now go and be an actor, please? And a bit like Gillian, I actually did one audition. I red-coated was my first job down at Canberra Sands.
Yeah.
And on Thursday, which was my day off, I went up to London, auditioned for Delfont and Grade organisation, got a job as a chorus boy, and stayed with them for about 4 years, doing bits in between. 3 musicals in the West End followed that. And the great thing, and it's so hard when young actors ask you about your career, it's so different then, because Lord Denford and Grade, they would meet you in the corridor and say, what are you doing in June? With this big fat cigar on. And he said, I don't know. You do now, you're doing a Lulu show in Blackpool. And 2 weeks later, the contract would arrive, and these guys, it was all done on a handshake. They knew you, they knew the characters. I've been very fortunate. I've done 12 musicals and things since then. But I've been very fortunate and Derek and I have probably known each other 30-odd years. A lot of 12 years in repertory theatre for me, really. And I used to come back and do the extra work with Derek and all the guys on the shows. And I loved the extra because they just threw money at you. I earned in a day what I'd earn in a week. Right. And some of the guys, I'd be sitting on set trying to learn the words of all these plays, because it was the latter part of weekly rep.
Yeah.
If any of you again are old enough in the audience here to know that.
Yeah.
We'd go in 5 days before, learn the first play. Monday night it would open. Tuesday morning you meet, you get cuts or notes on that show. Tuesday afternoon you start rehearsal for the second show. You've got 2 plays in your head, and then they come and talk to you on the Wednesday about what's going to follow that. But again, when you talk to young actors, that training,
Yes.
fantastic, utterly fantastic. I adore. It was very hard at the time, and I used to talk to Peter and the guys that have been around a long time about. I couldn't get a management or an agent because they wanted you to They wanted you to either do Shakespeare or do the summer seasons, or I'm heading towards my 37th panto this year.
Wow.
They wanted you to pigeonhole, and I didn't want to do. I loved the fact that I was doing straight theatre, and then I'd go and feed some of the greatest comics. For Delfont and Grade, both in the West End and around the country. It was a fantastic job. And one of the things, when I got my first role, straight acting, was at the Belgrade in Coventry. And I was singing in a Calamity Jane in the evening and doing the Seagull during the day. School, if you could get anything more diverse. But that's fantastic.
How do you...
Yes.
How do you play those two?
We were talking about this earlier when we were doing our signs. All actors are close to being mad.
Right.
I mean, we tread this very, very thin line. And I think nowadays, the pressures that young actors... I would talk about Heath Ledger, because I think now, when you're playing... When I play a baddie in a panto, the kids have got to hate me.
Yes.
I actually think if my first entrance, if at least 2 or 3 kids are not being taken out screaming their heads off, I've done it wrong.
Right, yeah.
That is my job,
Yeah.
to scare the doodah out of them as well. As indeed when you're doing the Doctor Who monsters, when we're the Cybermen and stuff, You had actors inside the suits. Interesting, a lot of kids are saying, get away from the CGI. We know that that's all, it's not real. Put actors inside the suits. Although you can't see us, we'll still be acting inside there, doing our damnedest to scare them. And my life, I've been so blessed in my 40-odd years. Because, in fact, I was singing Caiaphas in Jesus Christ Superstar, a show that I'd done a couple of times. I played pilot as well in it. And we had a director who was coming in to bring in some new cast members. And he was a feature editor at Thames. And he said, we've just shot a show that I know you'll be perfect for. It's called Wooden Top, but it's going into series. And you should go and meet Peter Gillian, who's producing that. And I went to see him. And the thing that he was interested in me was I've always loved cars. I've raced cars all of my life. And he locked into it. It took a year, which is quite standard, I think. For us. Like Peter said, you never know what the phone's going to ring or whatever. And he rang up and said, we want you to play this character, but we're not too sure it's going to work because it's never been done on British television before. We're not even sure we can fit a camera in a car and fly around the streets, other than it being a documentary. So I absolutely loved that. I came in and did a couple of little silly scenes in the background, and in the meantime, because I loved cars, I went off to Hendon. If you're going to learn it. Greatest thing about acting, isn't it, is the process of finding the characters. Is the great fun. I went to Hendon and learned how to drive a police car like they do. I was on the bill for over 20 years. I did the driving course there 8 times. So what it meant was we didn't have to shut the streets off.
So you're basically saying that you are as qualified as any police driver to...
I wouldn't quite say that, because I don't have to take all the flack if they crash.
Well,
and I had to say, in my time playing Tony Stamp, I had 12 POLACs, as they call them, police accidents. Or, it doesn't matter what they call them now. But the interesting thing there is, it goes against every piece of your human ability to crash a car. It goes against everything. And when you know you're going to smash this police car, it goes against everything you want to break. And of course, I work with some of the best stuntmen in the business, although I was doing my own stunts, but I was working with the greats out straight off of movies, all the Nosha Powell and all those guys, wonderful stuntmen. And they just said in one day, you drive down the road here, Nick, or open the door, you take the door off and just carry on, and we just do it once and for real. And I said, well, what happens if I miss the door? You can't. We got this one go. And I said, okay, well, what's the worst scenario of this? If the door goes under the car and it cuts the brake cables. That's the worst scenario. Okay. So what I used to do is I'd walk the set with all the guys. And all I'm doing is looking where I'm going to put this police car if it goes wrong. We do one shot with the police car as a police car, and then we've got an estate version. We've got all the crew in the back. You've got a lighting director, you've got the camera crew, you've got who your other actors are. But all that experience of working reps and all comes into it, because you're sitting there, you're talking at the car. As soon as they shout action at you, it's like, oh my God.
But when you're doing it, Graham, you feel, right, this is it, I'm doing it.
Got to do it.
You've got to do it. And you just boil up inside and say, right, this is it. I'm a crook. I'll give you an instance I had to do on a police chase. It's about this woman who, I think, had stolen something from a shop, and she is escaping in a car. So I always said I was a cheap stuntman, because they always picked on me if he's cheap. So what I had to do, I had to be the woman with the wig on, driving away at speed, and the next shot is me as a policeman chasing myself, because I'm chasing this woman. And the thing is, she had to crash the car, and I thought, how's she going to do that? But they give you a spot to where to, well, they marked the road there, and I said, I can't see that. I said, I want that. So out the window I want to see where I'm looking, so we know where to shot. So I went there, and there's a car already stationary, so I went, bang! I thought, oh my God, I just felt as if it was real, But you have to do these things. If you're acting, you've got to do what you're told, else get out of it.
Right.
And that's when I smashed up.
Interesting when people come up afterwards, obviously the bill was shot on the streets.
Yeah.
So we'd have lots of kids and lots of people come up and ask you to sign an autograph, and after doing that stunt stuff, you'd have to, can you just give me 10 minutes? You can't hold a pen.
No.
The adrenaline is absolutely extraordinary.
Do one on the A4, was it the A4 or the A1, and I'm a policeman driving this car, and I'm going in and out of the ordinary cars, you see, and I thought, so I said to the director, I said, have we got police permission to do this? He said, well, when we asked them, they said, well, we're not saying you can, but if any of the public complain, you've got to stop. So in other words, they say you carry on.
Do it.
And of course, then you think, oh right, yeah, and I'm whizzing in and out. But the next day, I had second thoughts. I thought, supposing I had a blowout, supposing I'd killed somebody, and for weeks afterwards, I was worried what might have happened.
Yeah.
But when you're asked to do it, you think, well, it's either that or get a sack.
Yeah.
So you do it.
I mean, it seems to me that things have changed. You were talking earlier about the fire, and you couldn't do that kind of stuff in a studio
do that
anymore.
scene now, no.
You're talking about kind of. I mean, surely
crash a car
for
now.
someone like Tony Stamp, they would have a stuntman these days, possibly, or
To be absolutely honest, it depends.
Right.
The thing was, I would say on the show like The Bill, when the producers were going to ask younger actors, you can't expect them to do that stuff.
Right.
Remember, I've got a racing licence.
Right,
I've spent my life around cars and racing cars all over,
Yeah.
not only this country, all over the world, unfortunately. And if you love cars and you like to... But the biggest thing, like Peter was just saying, if it goes wrong. We were doing this sequence where... with dear old Carver, who's supposed to be very ill, and we're supposed to be escorting this drugs down to be destroyed. And we're going down a little country lane, and the drugs car gets ambushed, and there's machine gun fire and things. And they said to us, we've got simulated machine gun fire around your car, and then you pull off into the side and you run. I said, okay, fine. And the one thing we really shouldn't tell you about is whether your production team are trying to save costs, which often is the case. When this simulated gunfire went off, Mark and I just got covered in glass shards. It just came straight at us through the windscreen. Because I race, and most of you probably know, if you're in crashes on the motor or anything like that, don't brake, because that is the worst thing you could possibly do, because there's going to be 13 people coming up behind you. So you don't do that. You find your way around it. You drive through it, over it, under it, around it. And I knew that there was a crew. I couldn't turn right because all the crew and the makeup team were all sat there, so I couldn't turn there. I got a hedge on the left, so you just go straight. I couldn't see anything because the shards of glass had gone into my eyes. You just drive and slowly stop. And the reason, the production man decided he wanted to save 75 quid and didn't put the safety glass on the inside of the windscreen. So, but what Peter's saying is the only thing that I can tell you, because I race cars, is that you just go into automatic mode when that stuff happens. But my argument about that is, like any of us, Shakespeare's, I'm at the National, I haven't uttered a single word at National, but I do all the broadsword fighting and stuff, which is fantastic. Huge fight sequences that can go on for 15, 20 minutes. And you go in the wings, and all you do as soon as you hit the wings is make sure you've got all your fingers in your ears still. And we were doing this, I won't tell you who the actor was, he's a very old actor, and they didn't want to sack him. Josh Ackland was playing the king. We did this huge fight sequence, and then this old actor has to run on, fall at the feet of Josh Ackland and go, "It is!" Meaning England is yours. We did this big fight sequence. He ran on, fell at his feet and said, "Is it?" The dangers of the one line.
Yes.
Brilliant. Tell us about being a Doctor Who monster, because you've been a few.
I have been a very few. Well, I think, again, I was very lucky, sort of in the late 70s, early 80s. They sort of had a group of young actors, and we were sort of like the BBC players. So I came and did Shakespeare's, Secret Army, Triangle, all of those things, playing junior officers and all sorts of weird and wonderful things for them, which was brilliant. And again, one of them was Doctor Who. I have a very strange sense of humour. I will laugh at most things where most people get very upset about. The one thing you learn in our trade is patience. We will be waiting for lighting, for sound, for hours. And then when they call you, they want it. They don't want any excuses. You don't feel like it now or whatever it is. That playing with emotions that we were talking about earlier. And as I said, well, I've been encased in rubber for the BBC far too many times for my own good. I love meeting Amy Roberts and the team. And when you go in and they talk about Cybermen or Marshmen or Melker, it's just a drawing.
Yeah.
And the thrill and the exhilaration of creating that. I mean, remember with Tom Baker, we were at the rehearsal studios in Acton, there's all this tape on the floor. And we're walking behind and the director said, "Make it sound like a Marshman. Give Tom something to play to." The hell does a Marshman say? But you do it. That's what you're paid to do, you know. And I think for Cybermen, it was that fun of playing what should have been a robot. They kind of lost their, in my humble opinion, they kind of lost their way a little bit now. I mean, we had to be 6 foot, otherwise I didn't want to use you, because you needed to be taller than Tom, so you actually scared everybody. And again, as I said that earlier on today, when you're firing your guns in those early days, we had to be so precise, because the technician was going to draw the laser line actually on it, you know. So you had to be so precise where you were standing and what you were doing. But I loved that. I loved the technicians. I loved the fact, like the bill, one handheld camera is all we had.
Yeah.
So you'll talk to the hardest thing that the director would say, how many shots, Gov? He said 8 times. So if you've done a 50-yard run, you're going to do that 50-yard run 8 times from his various angles. But that's what the job. But like Peter said, I haven't done a proper job.
No.
My wife said when work ceases to come through, which it often does for a few months and things, she said, well, can't you go and work back in the health service? Now, could you imagine lying there with a broken leg and I come walking towards you to say, I'm going to reset that for you? You think you're in an episode of Casualty.
Yeah.
But we can't go back to real life, can you? No one take. Can I just say, I was at the Dominion Theatre doing White Christmas, and I was the first Englishman to play the General in White Christmas. It's a beautiful, beautiful production. But ironically, we moved out of London for the first time in 26 years, and the first job I get is at the Dominion Theatre in London, and I had to take digs in Victoria, which broke my heart apart from anything else. But my walk, either at 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, depending on what we were doing after the show, would be down Whitehall and past Downing Street. And what I loved was, as I was walking past, "Oi, Tony!" And I turn around and it's the guys outside Downing Street, and I go across the road and the fellas say, "I used to watch you when I was a kid on the bill, that's why I became a copper." And you look and go, "But you've got a gun." What a relationship, like you were saying with the audiences. It's a fantastic life to live when the audiences come and talk and know. I mean, you're humbled at Doctor, at least I am, because so many of them will know the script, will know the director, will know your other acting colleagues, and I'd really have to work at it to remember who, why, when, and where.
I suppose for us, there's this show to focus on. For you, a lot of these jobs you were on for maybe a week or two, 30, 40 years ago, and it's difficult for you to kind of.
Well, I think because
most
most of us ducking and diving all the time. So, I mean, I can remember being at the studios on the bill, and we only ever worked up until about 4:30 in those days, so 7:30 to 4:30, driving like crazy. Again, you couldn't do it now, to get to Bristol to be on stage for 8 o'clock. Yeah. But that was the job. You daren't say no to anything, because you never knew whether that was going to be the end of it.
I wanted to ask you about Brendan Morbius in particular. Very studio bound. Did it feel like stage acting?
Yes, it did in a way, because there were. I'm just remembering there was a wonderful, and she was unusual. Of the Sisterhood of Khan, there was one actual actress called Gabrielle Mowbray. She was wonderful. I stayed in touch with her for a long time, and she was the sister who was pushed off the rocks at the top in what. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was,
Thank God you're here.
We've all seen it. It's fun.
Yes, and that was of course, that was in Acton. Yes, that was. I mean, that was at the studios. Yes. It did seem like a stage set, very much so. Yes, it did. In many ways. Including what I said, that we had Geraldine Stevenson, who was a very, the RSC's theatre choreographer. Yes. But then again, you just, as we do with so many jobs, there's so many things that when you look back and think, gosh, that was a bit odd, that was a bit unusual, you just accept it.
Yeah.
You accept it. The play is the thing, the show is the thing. There were many aspects of that story that were sort of unusual. There's the writing credit. There's a sort of unusual thing with the writing credit.
Robin Bland. Yeah.
Yes, Robin Bland. Yes.
Terrible name for a writer.
Well, no. So the story, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong. The story was that Terence Dicks wrote the story.
Yes.
And it was supposed to be more of a reverse Frankenstein, in that it was kind of a robot trying to build a person.
Yes.
And then he was away. It needed to be rewritten, and it ended up being more like Frankenstein than he would have liked. And so he said to the script editor, put it out under some Bland pseudonym. And so Robin Bland was added. Because yes, I mean, you wouldn't want that to be your real name, would you? If you were actually.
I wouldn't be so rude about a writer, as you gathered, and his name, in case he's writing a series at this moment in time.
What was I going to say? So, Doctor Who is a somewhat, well, often fantastical story. You played characters in the bill. You played policemen. Is it somewhat more difficult to get into that fantasy realm, or is it just a different way of acting?
You are just that part.
You're just that
That's
part.
you.
That's the job.
That's your job.
That's
the job.
our imagination.
Yeah.
Our bag of tools is our imagination, and all the skills we pick up half unconsciously as we go about our life. The people watching that you don't do deliberately, but you just find you're absorbing so much stuff. Do you know what I mean? And you use it hopefully when it's appropriate.
What about when it's a part that it just doesn't exist in the world? So, for example, you're playing someone who is, we don't know how old she is, but she's been drinking this elixir for years, and so she is essentially immortal. You're playing a statue that's a TARDIS. I mean, that... I don't have the brain for kind of thinking. Is this just something that you develop along the way, or is it just the product of a very overactive imagination?
You use your imagination, and they say, don't they? Lots of people have said, if a human being is a radio set, a wireless, we use, and we've got 1 million stations. We use about 3 of them. We've no idea, how big our imaginations are and how big our potential is. Even more now with IT, with the digital world the way it is, we use less and less and less.
I think it's far harder going home on the tube, having played Melka and being able to kill people with your eyes.
Yeah.
I think it's quite sad that you don't have that ability when you're on the tube on the way home. That'd be quite. Don't you realise I'm a Cyberman?
Yeah, I suppose that there is a certain anonymity to that you're only going to get recognised as PC Stamp, and
yeah, but that's great. That's fantastic. Okay, but I think, like most of us, when you go, you sort of, as I said, you meet Amy Roberts, and it's just a drawing.
Yeah.
To bring that to life is fantastic, and the fact that the technicians in the early stages, Melka had this long cable following behind him, and it was damn near impossible to move with it.
Right.
And also for the camera crew to disguise that he's got a big cable coming out of his rear end. And then they gave me for the lights, for the eyes. Yeah, so they gave me a little clicker thing. But of course, you've got an earpiece and a mouthpiece, and I can hear the gallery. And I really used to laugh a lot, particularly when we were doing the Cybermen, because the BBC at the time really upset a lot of people. But at 5:30, the lights would go off, irrespective. The unions were like, everything would just go down. So they're panicking like on a Saturday to get this thing finished and done. And I can remember the Cyberman listening to the gallery, and one of the actors wasn't quite on his lines, not a Cyberman, one of the sort of lead characters. And you heard the gallery, the obscenities that were coming out from the gallery, and the little floor assistant was there listening. If you don't tell that actor to go, and if he doesn't, I'm going to shove this. And the obscenities were unbelievable. And this wonderful floor man said, "Peter, the director wondered, could you?" When he got those earpieces, it's fantastic to hear that. But you sat in a throne as Melka for ages, and I could hear all this kicking off on the gallery. And Melka stand up and menacingly walk towards point B, which is just kind of, you can't see anything. Yeah. And so you stand up, you cramp, your arms have gone to sleep. When you're getting up, you think, I've got to flick the switch, make the eyes work. And as I'm walking towards the given spot, I can hear all these poor extras are all like, "Ah!" as Melka is treading on their hands and crushing their feet on his way to the given point. I do have a warp sense here, and I do kind of enjoy it.
So basically, next time we watch The Keeper of Traken, we just imagine you inside chuckling along.
Do you know what was great? It was 30 or 20-something years later, going and doing the CD, and I was there to play a planet-hopping safecracker. And then they said, we need Melka's voice. Would you do the voice? So to actually do the voice for Big Finish, 20 years having played, it was just fantastic. And that's the great thing about our job. Yeah. Don't know what the next one is or what it's going to be. We were talking about voiceovers earlier, and one of the actresses here, I won't mention her name, Janet, but she said, "Have you heard that voice in the lift? I'm sure that's so-and-so." You will hear our voices all the time. And I think one of the great things about doing Doctor Who's and things is because the producers and directors grew up with it and love it, they use your name associated with it, because at lunchtime they're going to call you over and talk to you about it. Yeah. And that is, I've got so many jobs from people doing voiceover stuff. Yeah. Who, and then I forget, I did this thing for an arthritic cream. And about 6 months later, we'd like to do a remake. And I was sitting in the booth and put the old earphones on. And this distant voice said, the company thought that was lovely. That Liverpudlian twang you put on was fantastic. And I was thinking, what the hell was in my head when I was doing this arthritic? So you just don't know, do you, now game? And I love that fact. Who knows?
Yeah. That's right.
Let's briefly. I don't know. How are we doing for time, Michael?
Literally no idea. So
because I haven't looked at the schedule. I feel we've been here for a while, and just wondering what time we've got.
Oh, there's more people here.
Well, let's throw it open to the audience. Anybody have a question? Okay.
I guess it's about you've both talked about the way that there's the kind of public response to like how in the 70s it used to be, a lot more people kind of wrote in to actors. I mean, you feel that changed.
I think probably producers and directors today would expect you to have gone to drama school. I didn't go to drama school, so I went to medical college, and I didn't want to go back into. But I think now you probably would need degrees and things for producers and directors to take any notice of you to get into that audition phase. So I would suggest, like all of us, I mean, the big thing about it, whether you're doing the bill or anything else, it's doing your research. It never ends. You have to keep doing that. In what I'm thinking, I'm onto my 178th character or something coming up, and each one brings something different, and you learn something each time. And I think that's the thing you say to actors.
You learn each other too, don't you?
Stretch. You want to be tested. You want to be stretched. I mean, when we're doing White Christmas, the director on opening night said, "We know you sing. You've done lots of musicals. So instead of Ella Jones singing the beginning of White Christmas, like you two, okay, fine. Well, shall we work it out with the musical director tomorrow?" So, no, do it tonight on opening night. Yeah, it'd be fine. And as performers, yes, there's that little bit about you. I think we all agree. You stand on stage, and just before you walk on stage, as the lights hit you, your brain instantly tells your mouth, "Not a clue. Don't know what the line is." And that is the differential between whether you like that kind of pressure or not. But go and do it. There's quite a few lads in today that came up and had autographs, and they're actors at the moment. You need as many, and that's why I did all the stage fighting, that stuff. You just need as many opportunities. When you go before the producers and directors, you need to offer them as much as you possibly can.
Did you mean how do you get parts or the public right? What was the question again?
It was more about fan mail.
I thought it was about fan mail, but
it does seem
but I
like
wasn't
a lot
sure.
of people, a lot of actors and actresses talk about they got lots of fan mail back in the day, and I don't know if that still happens. Whether you still have that culture.
It's called Facebook.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes, it's called Facebook, but I still get quite a lot of fan mail. I just do, sent either via Spotlight or Equity or whatever. It's great. This has been an amazing discussion. I think it's the riskiest profession that there is, but if you can live without it, I think you should. I mean, being an actor, if you can, because of the statistics. Do you know what I mean? But if you can't live without it, I mean, I was born in Moss Side in the slums. There's no provenance or anything there. If you want to do it, if you have to do it, it's so paradoxical. It's the most amazing life. But we're a tribe of people who have to accept that, as we've said, that we don't know what's around the corner. Usually, anyway, we don't know what the next thing will be. However much we may like the idea of having a bit of security, we don't know, and we have to accept that and go with the flow. And knowing that people like what you've done is marvellous.
In the tough times, it's your fan base that keep you going, for absolute sure. Yeah. And Twitter and Facebook is vital for that. Yes. I mean, they bring up stuff about you hadn't seen for years, don't they? It's wonderful.
And people come up to me and told me a difference. I said, "Oh no, I wasn't on that." I said, "Oh yes, you were," and they tell you what you did, and you've completely forgotten.
Do you find that there is information out there, particularly on things like IMDb and Wikipedia, that is incorrect about you? That people have
Wikipedia
got that
is the
wrong.
most rubbish thing. I've been introduced by more MCs having quoted Wikipedia, which has been totally, completely... Because the trouble with Wikipedia is any of you can go on there and alter my profile.
Yeah.
At will.
Right. That's a challenge for everybody when we get home. what can we make Graham
So
about?
you tend to think those that are quoting Wikipedia are the lazy ones.
Because they haven't done the work to figure it out.
People said to me, well, why don't you bring up your IBM? And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. What's the IBM? They said, well...
Irritable bowel.
They said, you've got something on the IBM. I said, but there's hardly anything on. They said, you was in every episode of Porridge, not a word about it. He said, I said, but whatever's there, I never put it there. I don't know who puts it there, but I never did. And I thought, well, I'm doing all right without it.
Yeah.
So why do you need it?
Well, yeah, for, as you say, the people who are lazy enough to not look anywhere else apart from...
I think the fact, particularly as people get older, I think... I don't know about you guys, but the BBC trying to recreate the comedies and stuff is a lovely idea. But I think do something new.
Yeah.
The writers are there, the producers are there, the actors are there. Do something different. And I think, again, your fan base is absolutely vital to you. There's something like 22,000 stampers out there.
Wow.
That follow Tony Stamp. And I love it because they come up with stuff that I'd completely forgotten about. I think it's 1,400 episodes or something I did of that show, and the lovely thing is it's shown about 3 times a week or something, so I'm told, and then on Saturdays someone came up to me this morning and said, I've just watched 3 hours of The Bill. Seriously, you should get a life. But that is amazing that people do that, and that's the greatness. I think one of the sadnesses, I've been with Childline for a very, very long time, 30 odd years. I think the sadness is that technology is a wonderful thing. It also can be a curse depending on how it's used.
Yeah.
And I think that's up to I'm going to get political, up to our governments to sit on that stuff, which they don't.
Right.
But the fan base thing, that's wonderful. Keep the tweets coming.
Great. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Graham, Gillian and Peter. That's the end of this panel. We're moving on to the next one.
That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.